This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, September 30th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. A new United Nations study says Africa is losing $89 billion each year through illicit financial flows such as theft and tax evasion. Okwi Oko has the details.
Africa is losing nearly $89 billion a year because of illicit financial flows such as tax evasion and theft, a United Nations study showed on Monday. That's more than is received in development aid and is equivalent to 3.7% of the continent's GDP. Nigeria's Vice President Oluyemi Oluleke Osibanjo said the illicit financial flows were impeding sustainable development across Africa.
They undermine the foundations of democracy and provide the financial incentives for terrorist activities and fuel conflicts on the continent.
He said the commercial form of illicit financial flows, especially tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance, accounted for 65% of the total. Mukisa Kitui, Secretary General of the UN Conference on Trade and Development, says Africa and its people are being robbed of their prospects.
Countries with the high illicit financial flows are demonstrably less productive in agriculture than those with more control on illicit financial flows. Countries with high illicit financial flows invest about 25% less in health, 58% less in education than comparable countries on the continent.
The UN report described Africa as a net creditor to the world, saying that more illicit capital flows out than the continent has in external debt. What's more, the situation could be worse. Junior Davis, head of policy and research at UNCTAD's Africa division, said the 89 billion figure was likely an underestimate, citing data limitations.
Okwi Oko of Reuters with that report. Nigerian lawmakers in the northwestern state of Kaduna have approved a measure to castrate men convicted of raping children under the age of 14. The controversial law comes in the wake of public outrage over the rising number of rape cases in recent months. But while supporters praise the new law as a move to defend women and children, some human rights activists say it is too harsh and may even fail to deter perpetrators. Timothy Obiezu reports from Kaduna State.
This 13-year-old girl now lives in a safe house. 1 month ago, Amina, which is not her real name, was raped by 3 men from her neighborhood.
They have shops in front of our house. I was hanging around the shops. I didn't want to go inside the house because my stepmom was beating me. They called me and gave me a drink and raped me.
Amina says she's even more upset because her father, a police officer, dismissed the case after being bribed by the men.
I feel bad that my dad did that.
But Amina's case has been reopened with help from Samira Mudibo, a Kaduna-based activist who is one of the coordinators of the state-led campaign against rape. The 3 men have been rearrested and are awaiting judgment. They could be among the first to be surgically castrated under a new law punishing rapists of children under the age of 14.
Anyone that could rape a child does not deserve to live. And I actually stand by that because it takes a monster to be able to. There are a lot of things that come with sexual violation of kids. It's not just about the emotional damages. There are physical damages and sometimes for the rest of their lives.
But human rights lawyer Okoro Kelechi argues the new law is too harsh and may fail to address the issue.
I don't think surgical castration, for me, addresses the root problem of rape, because rape occurs more in the mind than in the act. Okay, I like to look at it as something that is more psychological. It goes beyond the sex. So it's not about the utensil or the tool used to achieve sexual pleasure.
Over 400 cases of rape were reported in Kaduna State during the coronavirus lockdown, according to local aid agencies. Throughout Nigeria, cases also soared, forcing authorities to declare a state of emergency over the issue. It is not clear whether many more states in Nigeria will adopt this new law, but activists like Modibo say they will remain vigilant to ensure children are protected and offenders are held accountable. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Kaduna, Nigeria.
Uganda and Tanzania this month signed an agreement to build what they say will be the world's longest heated oil pipeline, a $3.5 billion project that will run from southwestern Uganda to Dar es Salaam. Ugandan authorities say those affected will be compensated, but rights groups worry because few details have been announced. Environmental activists warn the oil project, run by the French company Total and China National Offshore Oil Corporation, also puts Uganda's nature reserves and ecosystems at risk. Halima Athumani has more from Bulisa, Uganda.
Ugandan farmer Margaret Kagole says she is still fighting for compensation for land that was taken a decade ago for tapping the country's oil wealth. Kagole was given a payout that she says was not enough, so she is still fighting for over $16,000. Meanwhile, some of her remaining land stands to be taken to build the East African crude oil pipeline, the largest in the region, stretching to Tanzania.
Even this one, I'm not sure that maybe they will come and pay. Now 2 years. So for us as rural people, what do we do?
Presidents Yoweri Museveni and John Magufuli in September signed a deal to build the pipeline, which will cross from southwestern Uganda to Tanzania's port of Tanga. The oil project will be run by French company Total and Chinese company Sinopec. It is not yet clear when construction of the nearly 1,500-kilometer or 900-mile line will begin, but it is expected to take up to 3 years to finish and to displace thousands of people. Few details have been released on the payout, and Ugandan activists worry the oil project could damage Lake Albert and nature reserves.
How are these wells going to impact on the fishing? Because there are spillovers that happen. And when you look at the environmental social impact assessment, it shows you the depth where they pick the oil from, and then they bring it close to the lake. So our point was that why do you have to put a well close to the lake? Can't you use another method?
The Petroleum Authority of Uganda says all locals will be compensated for acquired land before the project begins and at rates determined by land authorities. The Petroleum Authority of Uganda maintains that land has been carefully selected for the refinery and pipeline to ensure nature is protected.
When they're acquiring land, either for a pipeline or the central processing facility, there is provision for a buffer zone. So if we have acquired, let's say, a 30-meter corridor, the pipeline is not going to fill all that corridor. That corridor that's being acquired provides for the pipeline itself and then a buffer on each and every side.
Ugandans here are becoming used to seeing their homes swallowed by seasonal flooding and lakeside erosion. Some, like Kagole, have added oil development to the list of threats to their land. Halima Athumani for VOA News, Bulisa District, Uganda.
The COVID-19 death toll has climbed to more than 1 million people worldwide, and because of a recent surge of infections in many countries, including in Europe and the United States, more coronavirus deaths are expected in the coming months. But there are also signs that death rates are dropping, and people who contract the virus now are faring better than those infected early on. VOA correspondent Maria Madiallo has more.
Although coronavirus deaths continue to climb, experts say there are signs the death rates are falling in some places. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says death certificates show the percentage of deaths due to pneumonia, influenza, or COVID-19 was 6.6% in the week ending on September 19, down from nearly 10% the week before. In Britain, research showed a death rate of 1.5% in August, compared to a rate of more than 6% during the pandemic's peak in April. Martin Landry, professor of medicine at Oxford University, says medical workers also know more about how to treat patients, including with the use of steroids called dexamethasone.
We now know that for those patients on ventilators, you can reduce mortality by a third with a simple, inexpensive, widely available treatment. We didn't know that, we do now. We also know that remdesivir reduces hospital stay, but we don't yet know still whether that actually improves survival. And keeping people out of hospital or reducing their stay in hospital is important, but it's not the key factor. The key factor is, can we save lives?
Landry is a lead investigator of Britain's National Clinical Trial Recovery, which is testing existing drugs in large-scale studies to determine their effectiveness.
Hydroxychloroquine, despite all its previous hype and advocacy and so on, does not work in patients in hospital. We know that lopinavir, ritonavir, so an HIV treatment, widely recommended, widely used, that also doesn't work.
As communities and universities decide on how best to protect against the virus, some experts suggest the COVID-19 is here to stay, just like other viruses. Professor David Heyman sits on the World Health Organization's Strategic and Technical Advisory Group for Infectious Hazards.
At present, it appears that it may become endemic. And if so, then we need to learn to live with this virus as we learn to live with HIV, as we've learned to live with other infectious diseases, most of which have come from the animal kingdom into humans at some time in the past.
Former U.S. Food and Drug Administration's Jesse Goodman is now chief scientist at Georgetown University.
We are going to have an ongoing challenge with COVID. The good news is we know ways to reduce the impact. We know now that social distancing can work. We know now that wearing masks can reduce both the risk to others and the risk to yourself. And we need really consistent public health messaging around this and engagement.
He says that will keep the economies going and avoid going in and out of lockdowns. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
Stay with us. Welcome back to Africa 54. U.S. President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden sparred over policy and traded insults in their first debate Tuesday night in Cleveland, Ohio, just 5 weeks before the presidential election. VOA's Michael Sullivan reports on the combative confrontation.
A genial start to the debate, which quickly became a heated exchange over topics including COVID-19, which has claimed 1 million lives globally and more than 200,000 in the United States.
The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was.
Trump said he has led an effective response.
We got the gowns, we got the masks, we made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators, and now we're weeks away from a vaccine.
Biden blasted Trump's efforts to end the Affordable Care Act, also called Obamacare, which provides health care insurance to some 20 million people. Trump said the law is unconstitutional and limits consumer choice. Biden says voters can keep their private health plans under his proposed expansion of Obamacare.
They can. They do. They will under my
The
proposal.
exchange quickly degenerated as each man talked over the other.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better.
Trump accusing Biden of pursuing socialized medicine. Another point of contention, Trump's choice to fill a seat on the U.S. Supreme Court, left vacant by the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a liberal icon. Trump nominated conservative Judge Amy Coney Barrett, launching a confirmation process when voting has already begun in many states. Biden says whoever wins in November should fill Ginsburg's seat.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is.
Trump responded that it's his duty to name a replacement regardless of the timing.
We won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her.
A Trump campaign official says he's pleased with the debate.
I think what viewers saw was President Trump, who was in command of every moment of the debate. And I think they saw a weak Joe Biden, who was put on his heels most of the time, spent a lot of time looking around for assistance from the moderator.
Analysts slammed the free-for-all.
No, Mr. President.
When Biden spoke, so many times he would get 10, 20, 30 seconds into a coherent point, and then he'd be interrupted over and over and over again by the president. So to ask who won the debate is almost meaningless because the president made sure there actually was no presidential debate as we have come to know them.
With round one finished, two more debates are scheduled for October. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
An estimated 30 to 40 million Americans are in danger of being evicted from their homes as a direct result of the economic slowdown and the massive job losses by the coronavirus outbreak. A federal supplement to state unemployment benefits that was providing financial relief to millions under an economic stimulus package ended in July. And a temporary ban on evictions recently ordered by the CDC is set to expire in January. As talks among lawmakers to renew benefits stall in Washington, many experts predict the housing crisis created by the pandemic will only get worse. VOA's Julie Tabo has more.
Millions of Americans who lost part or all of their income due to the coronavirus pandemic are facing eviction as the deadly virus continues to spread across the U.S.
It's been pure hell, to be honest.
A recent casualty is Ashley Johnson.
I'm currently working at my desk job. But my other two businesses, I do holistic health and wellness coaching. And because of COVID, I don't have these clients no more. And so I only have my desk job to rely on.
Johnson was evicted in early September from a private transitional house in Kansas City, Missouri, where she lived with her 3 children.
Mentally, I'm an emotional wreck. I just recently had to reach out to getting some counseling because I can kind of feel myself slipping a little.
This pandemic and the shutdown has been no picnic for me and my children.
Johnson participates in rallies for KC Tenants, a group advocating for affordable housing in Kansas City, Missouri. Like in other states, Missouri already had an affordable housing crisis when the pandemic hit. And now, almost half the renters in the state are at risk of eviction because they can't pay their rent, according to KC Tenants. Many Americans had been receiving financial assistance through state and federal unemployment benefits. But the supplemental federal assistance of $600 a week lapsed in July, putting millions at risk of eviction.
I'm signing an executive order directing the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HHS, and CDC to make sure renters and homeowners can stay in their homes.
In a press conference on August 8th, the president announced an executive order to provide assistance to renters and homeowners and protect Americans against eviction. Prompted by the announcement, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recently issued an order to temporarily halt residential evictions to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. But the order comes with conditions.
People may be protected for some short period of time from eviction, but they still owe rent every month, and the landlord can still charge late fees, fines, and collect interest on that rent. So the mountain of debt just continues to grow.
No, please. Tenants and housing advocates are calling for additional measures like rent and mortgage cancellation. Attorney Gina Kiala says lawmakers must be part of the solution.
The mass layoffs that are happening in this country are not the fault of those workers who are losing their jobs, and we cannot let our fellow Americans go down in flames. We need to act. We need to push Congress to do the right thing and pass a robust act and keep in place those measures that we know were stopping the eviction avalanche before.
Kiala is encouraging landlords to negotiate with their tenants when possible. But with approximately 50% of the nation's rental units owned by mom-and-pop landlords, many cannot absorb the losses from unpaid rent.
We're hearing from our landlords, they're calling and emailing. They're worried about losing not only their own homes, but their rental homes as well. And they're also worried about losing, not ever being paid back after this is over.
North Carolina landlord Kathy Phillips relies on her 10 rental properties for income. One of her tenants has been falling behind on her rent.
I have one tenant who's a single parent, who's unemployed and unable to pay her rent. I don't feel comfortable evicting her. I have offered her 50% off her rent for 3 months with no expectation to pay it back.
Ashley Johnson says she could use some of that compassion.
The biggest challenge for me is just pretending to be happy, because I have to be strong for my kids,
Julie Tabo, VOA News, Washington.
In our tech news, Rwanda is one of the fastest growing African countries in internet technology. Some analysts say this is the government's ambitious plan to transform the country into a regional high-tech hub. For more insight, Africa 54 technology reporter Paul Ndiho spoke to Kevine Bajaneza, founder and CEO of Natcom Services, a tech company which equips unemployed youth with essential training, mentoring, practical experience, and job placement as IT professionals.
Kevine Bajaneza, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
You run a tech hub where you train young people in the Rwandan capital, Kigali. Talk to me more about that. Tell me, what is it exactly that you do?
We do capacity building for youth in general, for fresh graduates from universities and college. We also train the high school leavers and also do empower young girls into STEM careers. So we have been into this for a long time, and we help students to get practical experience, mostly in the technology skills, acquiring computer skills, what I would say, basic skills and professional skills.
How many people have you trained so far?
We have trained more than 2,000 youth across the country. We have been holding different boot camps and workshops, training youth. Of course, we train them for a period of 3 weeks to 2 months, depending on the specific programs that they are taking up. And later on, we also have what we call post-trainings, whereby we prepare them now to write their resume with communication skills so that they can start now the process of applying for jobs.
What inspired you to start this program?
I actually saw the challenges people get through the process of being in school, graduating, and also getting jobs. So I decided to start this because myself also, I was from the same background, and I found that so many youth, especially in Rwanda, but not only in Rwanda, actually I would call it's a regional issue or even a global issue, where I find that so many youth are graduating with a lot of theory in their hands, actually in their brain. But again, in the end, they find that they have actually to demonstrate what they know practically. And that's what the employers need. So to connect that, to actually bridge the gap between the unemployed youth and fresh graduates and the employers, I had to start that program.
How big is the tech space in Rwanda?
The tech space is moving so fast, yeah, and everyone else has to cope with the situation. Actually, the government is doing very well in terms of technology, spaces, projects, and actually the technology advancement is really good.
Speaking about the government, a lot of people credit your president for being sort of a visionary in that space. He has created an enabling environment for young people to thrive, especially in the IT sector. To what extent has your program or your company benefited from some of those programs that are in place?
We are tech people, I would say, because everyone is able to use technology. Each and everyone is able to use, to have basic digital skills so that you can cope with the situation, because banks are using technology. Agriculture is using technology right now. Plus other industries like software development is really cross-cutting. So I would say that ICT or technology in general is a cross-cutting aspect right now.
You just said that almost every single person has to use technology. How about the disadvantaged, the poor who are in the villages? Can they afford that internet? Can they access that technology? Can they even, are they even in a position to have a computer?
The government has tried very much to set up the affordable infrastructure. It is in that line that even the rural areas, the villagers are also able to actually use the internet. We have what we call telecenters, yeah? Telecenters means like each and every district has a public space for citizens to come and use internet, or even for the online applications. If people are looking for different services in the government, they have to go to those centers and get the internet connection.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you too.
That was Africa 54 tech reporter Paul Ndiho speaking with Kebine Bajeneza, founder and CEO of Natcom Services in Kigali, Rwanda. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, we thank you for watching.